Hello Internet, and welcome to another Wednesday's Serial. So, I just want to go through my week of comics, mostly actually pretty much back on track, but I'm going to start off with a big chunk of DC because I just decided I was going to go for broke, and I picked up Nightwing Rebirth thus far. This is actually really interesting to me. I read a good chunk of Nightwing back when it was Nightwing, before the New 52, and did not like the New 52, and now that we're here, this does feel like Nightwing again, but we're coming off the whole Grayson thing in an interesting way, playing with the Court of Owls, which was something I followed pretty well throughout the New 52, so it's a blend of things I actually enjoyed. This seems like a slow burn, still something of a spy tale, but more superhero, and I think it just fits better than what I did read of Grayson, but I'm starting to see some elements that I heard people liked about the Grayson run coming through, and I think it's really interesting. There's very poignant in the first issue, not the Rebirth issue, and a friend was telling me about, which is part of the reason I picked this up, because friends are talking about it, which is much more likely to make me pick it up than many other things. About Batman saying, like, you need to stop asking me for advice. You have proven yourself. You are doing your own thing under your own methods. You made that very clear. It's one thing to ask me, my thoughts, but it's just an opinion. I'm not your mentor anymore. And then they're playing off that with the supervillain saying, I'm going to teach you things that you never learned from your mentor. And it ends up running along with his instincts in an odd way, but it takes a dark twist because of where it's coming from and the decisions that are coming from that. And it's going to be something of an interesting morality play, which I think is usually where superhero comics are strongest. Atop many other things, compared to many of the DC Rebirth stuff, this seems to have a certain long game that's going to allow certain issues and moments to pop and have a greater weight as we go through this run. How long this run can really pull that trick, I'm not sure, but I think to say it can run a fairly long time is fair. But when I compare it to the Gotham chunk in Batman, it's not quite as far along. Because what we're having is there's going to be a crossover event. And I promised I was going to buy all three at this point up through that crossover because it's right around the corner and I want to enjoy it because I found out it's about the Monster Men and that whole deal from Batman's earlier days. I don't know. It's something that does generally interest me. It's going to be 6 issues, which means it's just going to be a month. And if I'm just picking up all these books, I just pick it up through then I'm probably just going to pick one to go. And Batman seems like the weakest, but that's... This 4th issue really brought me around on Batman in a lot of ways. Seeing the fall of this Gotham character as a hero in certain ways was interesting. We're seeing death. We're seeing someone with a high level of power buckling because their mental fortitude doesn't match their physical. And I think there's some cool interplay there. It's a bit simple, but considering we're 4 issues in and we're getting some dynamics that are unwinding in different ways, I still think, that's worthwhile. But this is also very clearly leading us to that Monster Man thing, whereas in Nightwing, it's coming around the corner, but the Monster Man thing has been built up to it all. But in Detective, it started to be mentioned ever so slightly, too, so it's going to be interesting to see. And what's even more interesting is, in Batman, we have him mentoring these characters. And that's coming in. Great. In Detective, we have all these different characters. Batman's purposely removed himself from mentoring them. And he's also screwing up horribly. He's making all kinds of mistakes. He's been kind of the fall guy. But then in Nightwing, we have all this stuff going on, and Batman's an element there too that's making Grayson uneasy. So I think seeing that all come together should actually make for a really intriguing series of comics that is going to have some impact on these 3 series moving forward, because they have a central core. And that's the cool thing, is when these crossovers are just crossovers as far as they need to be, it works well. But it can fall apart really quick when you put too much weight on. So I'm actually really excited for this, because this feels genuine. So, yeah. Then, the last of DC for this week for me was Green Arrow. This has been interesting, because I feel, again, on some level, like this is retelling what we kind of expect the Green Arrow story to be, yet, as far as comics have gone, the story really hasn't happened this way. And it's this weird, interesting interplay of them being able to have their cake and eat it too in a weird way. And in here, they're tossing in Diggle, and that's working in an interesting way. And we're getting some movement on this story already that was set up. And I know this is technically issue 5, but I mean, even so, just being a handful of issues in, this thing's got legs and is moving. It's still decompressed storytelling, but it's not decompressed to the point that issues are being wasted. I think I'm seeing that now. A lot of what held a lot of the New 52 back were just dead issues where basically nothing happened. And the only book I think I'm seeing that in currently is Wonder Woman. So... But then, oh man, book of the week, basically. Tokyo Ghost number 9 is fantastic. I loved this. There was just a panel in here that just, oh my god, just stands on its own. Check your privilege, Hitler. Oh my god. I love this. We got a villain on a level. I mean, I know we've seen him before, but this was his shining moment. And we got a lot of weight of past issues just played through. And I'm seeing more connections and why this comic has moved the way it has. And each issue has had so much to it. I'm honestly, at this point, have 2 interesting thoughts. First, because things have been so dire and the world is just collapsing around dealing with this nature, on a certain level, I want our hero to fail, and I want our hero to fall. I don't want this to be a hopeful thing. I want this to go south on some level, and I don't know why that is per se, but I feel like there's some dark side of this that it's gone too far. Like, he can't be overrun, but there's something to say for that last glimmer of hope, dying, fighting, and there's that. The other thing is I really want this to end somewhere around 12 issues. Like, I really feel like if this just caps off perfectly, this could be one of those greats that's just a trade that you let sit on your shelf. I guess 2 trades, but it would just be this perfect little thing that's just, this is comics at its highest. 2 incredible creators creating this just ingenious work that just really wouldn't have happened in any other medium. I mean, this maybe could have been in something else. I just don't see it working the same way. There's certain aspects to Tokyo Ghost that just requires the loud silence of comics. And yeah, I just think it works, but even if it does continue, I mean, more of a good thing, right? I don't know. So I've just been loving this. And the last comic this week, Paper Girls. For a book that started off and I just had no idea where it was going or what it's doing, this whole idea of seeing yourself through the ages, dealing with the dilation of time, playing with kind of the idea of fate and what you're supposed to do and when you're supposed to do it. I think there's a lot of really cool stuff here. And I think if this comic can just crank it up one more notch, there might be, or maybe we're just building to it, there's a certain metatextual level to it. Because, I mean, think about it. You have this, like, 80s and this glorification of the 80s coming through that we've seen pop up in a lot of comics recently, especially coming from Image, even. But, I mean, you can't avoid it. I mean, the Batman stuff, and some of what's been going on at Marvel with a lot of what they did with their recent event, a lot of the stuff that they pulled forward to say this was some of the great stuff we wanted to relive, a lot of it was 80s. Like, there's a lot of 80s nostalgia in comics. And yeah, some 90s and whatnot, but I mean, it's kind of that era, that whatnot. And to say that maybe we need to look at that, but maybe also to say, like, there's the older characters and we're here now, and we kind of need to find something else now that we're a bit older. There's some level there. I mean, there's some level that this could have a metatextual level if it just kicked it up one more gear. And I think that might be helpful for comics. Because I do feel at a certain level like there's a certain amount of churn in us doing the same old thing, even if it's a new thing. And what's interesting is, in a lot of ways, this comic is so far from that. Paper Girls is a comic pretty unlike anything else you read, yet there's so much that makes it seem like it should have been a comic you read already. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just crazy today, but that's where I'm at with this week. I'll catch y'all soon and talk about some other crazy stuff I've been reading.